You are now listening to the Invited Podcast with Cedric Harris and Tia McClain. You've officially been invited.
Welcome to another episode of the Invited Podcast. Today we invite Kyren Harrell, a comedian and college student at Depaul University studying communications. And so Kyren has been on TV, he's modeled, he starred in commercials, and he has a very large following on social media where you can watch original skits, but also focus on mindfulness and well-being. So Kyren, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Hello. That was a wonderful intro. God, I love that.
So happy to hear that. Yeah. So we always start off having our guests kind of give us a little bit of their background. And so as a college student, we do understand that your story is still being written, but just kind of give us a little bit of your story. So your upbringing and how you got to where you are now.
Well, that's tricky. You all know my sister, so I'm a child of two. I'm the younger brother. My parents were never married, so there was a lot of drama going on in that area. There was separation from my father, which is tough on a kid.
Yeah.
And me and my mother's relationship has always been estranged, to put it simply, which is kind of where I think my drive for comedy comes from, because it's just like it takes about an hour for things to become funny. That's what I like to say. So if it's hard, it's rough, it's going to take about an hour before I can be like, okay, is there any humor in here? So just growing up, constantly arguing with my mother, finding that comfort in my sister. I come from a big family. My mom has, 8 or 9 siblings.
Wow.
So I like that. I appreciated that aspect, coming up with my cousins. But I've always been this kind of outgoing, like, let me talk, look at me type of dude to say, real quick, when I was, and I just remembered this a couple months ago, when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, they were trying to put me on ADHD medicine, all my teachers at school.
Okay.
Like, oh, like, you're too rambunctious, you're too wild, this and that. And they were talking to my mom was talking to my dad. So I guess in some way my hyperactiveness brought the family back together. But so they're trying to figure out, what to do with this kid.
Yeah.
And they were doing, my dad didn't want me to go on medicine. My mom was like, well, shit, maybe you need it. I confess, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so then my mom was just like, just work something out with him. Just work something out. And so I had this teacher that was like, well, what if I give you candy at the end of every class? And that didn't work. And so then I had this teacher, and this was in 3rd grade. And she was like, what if I let you get up? If you're quiet for the last 30 minutes, I'll let you get up for the last 5. And you can tell some jokes, you can write a song, you can do whatever in front of the whole class. And so I remember that like a couple months ago. And ever since then, it's like, I don't know, it made me feel self-assured in myself that it's kind of always been, that's been my motivator for most things, to have that moment. But yeah, that's my upbringing.
Cool. So it sounds like you've always been, like you said, center of attention, maybe even a class clown sometimes. But like, what made you want to hop into the entertainment space in the beginning? And then what was the first thing you kind of dived into?
Okay. I don't really know what makes me want to do it. It's just that I know that I don't want to. So I don't know what the drive to do it is. I just know that there's a strong drive to not do it.
Okay.
So like, I've never ever envisioned myself like in an office, and even when I have like I work at State Farm right now. So even when I'm sitting there, I'm just like, I want to like pull my hair out. And I was talking to my mom the other day, and she was saying something about how excited she is for retirement. And I can't fathom looking forward to not doing the thing that you chose to do for your entire life. So I don't know if there's a finite what made you want to, but there's a finite what made you like not want to be a part of that. And then my first thing for, I guess, diving into it, I don't know, professionally.
Or just, you do like, you say like modeling or like stand up, but you also have your large Instagram following too. Did you start on Instagram or did you start in another path?
So Instagram was the first, technically Snapchat, but Instagram what really broke through. I used to do these talks on Snapchat, and people would just be like, do stand up, or move to Instagram. But I was always so nervous of shifting a platform, because I had this thing of like, nobody really cares about me, so no one's gonna switch over with me. But I got my heart broke my sophomore year of high school. This girl that I was with cheated on me with my best friend.
Ooh.
And then at this time, me and my mother's relationship was wild, and I was actually addicted to a couple drugs. So I was drinking alcohol heavy. I was also drinking lean at this point. Yeah, I was a wild child.
Going through, yeah.
Yeah. And so then when that breakup happened, that's also when I remember having my first panic attack too. And my cousin was there. We were in the basement, and he had to like restrain me so I could just like, so my heartbeat would just get back to normal. And so then kind of in that moment, I had this aha type of thing of where you're not doing anything that you said that you wanted to do. So yes, you're upset with your girl and with your best friend, but I think you're more so upset with yourself, because with all things going on around you, like now that she is gone, you feel like you have nothing, and you've never felt like that. Like, why are you not doing what you want to do? So then over the course of the next 6 months, I stopped drinking. I quit lean because it was messing up track, and I was just running track at the time, and I wanted to do good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I just picked up my phone, and this guy that I used to know, that I used to go to school with, was like, "Hey, you're really funny. Let's shoot some videos." And me and his first video went viral. It had 750,000 views after like 2 months. And so I was just getting follower after follower after follower. And I was like, well, I got to maintain this. I can't just I can't be one of those. So then I just started maintaining it. And then that's kind of when I dove into communication, and when I guess that you could say that I also kind of started on my positivity journey as well. It was just that I just felt stripped bare at this point. And then I had to, I guess in that moment, I was kind of forced to be uncomfortable with myself and then build a version of myself that I could be comfortable with. If that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So
I didn't realize there were so many layers. We're really getting like into it. So as myself, I work in the education space. So I'm always super interested in people's like educational journey. Was school always big for you and your family, or do you feel like this is something that you kind of just have to do?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for being in the education system. We meet people like you. Y'all are heroes.
Thank you.
And then my mother and my father both didn't finish college.
Okay.
Jasmine, my sister, is a huge academic. So the family likes academia. And it's not that yes, there is a push. Yes, to answer shortly. And it's not that I don't like academia. I pride myself on gaining all knowledge that I can. It's just sometimes I get tired of the education system, but not the education itself. And I think that that's kind of like reflective in society of how people are excited that school shut down when we were in quarantine. That should kind of be reflective of, hey, maybe something's wrong here. People are like, great, I don't have to go to this place. But no, I've just, I don't know if it's the rebellious thing, but it's always just, so there was a push. And I see the importance, and I appreciate the importance. It's just that for people like me, I never feel like I'm learning what I need to learn.
Yeah.
What I want to learn. I feel like we've never learned enough about Black history ever. Like we never learned that. And it's kind of weird how they can strip that part bare and just teach it to you as if our history starts with us being slaves instead of us being kings. It's a wild thing to try to force feed somebody.
Yeah.
And then I loved math until they started putting numbers in it, or until they started putting letters in it. I was good at math. I've always loved history because I don't know, lineage is what creates everything around you. So I've always loved history. Yeah. But reading and writing have always been my thing. Like, what does this? How can I play with this word or this sentence and then make it mean something completely different than what it is intended to be, or how can I perceive it differently from the person next to me? So there was a push for school, and there is an internal push for education. It's just kind of different from how
like
people
the traditional.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you mentioned the reading and writing piece and like how you can manipulate words to make it a different outcome. So I think that kind of goes into just what you do overall with coming up with sketches and stand up and all the different things that you do. Can you talk to us about your creative process? Like, what is that like when coming up with a sketch or with, a stand-up skit? And also, can you talk to us about that first video you did and give the people a little bit of background about that?
Okay, I got you. So right now I'm heavy into stand-up. Like that's been, as the years have gone by, last year, so 2019, 2020, and yes, now 2021, I have just been overdrive with stand-up, completely overdrive. And my process for that is so uncertain. It's so uncertain. But the ideal process for me is that it's about 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Everyone around me is asleep. The world is still. I like to be naked or in my underwear. And I have to I need my laptop. And I need to, if I get stuck, I have about 105 pages of notes that I started at the beginning of quarantine. And so since then, it's just grown to this big mess. And so if I can't think of anything in the moment or at the time, I'll go through, close my eyes, scroll up, put my finger on something, look at it, and try to expand on it, since I'm different now than I was when I wrote it.
Right.
But other times it's just sporadic. I would love to show. On my phone, there's a bunch of videos of just my face and super close. It's not flattering. And I go, stand-up idea, sketch idea, and I talk about the concept. So if I don't really have the words yet, then I'll talk about the concept. And then sometimes, and that's just random throughout the day. When I was at State Farm, pulling my hair out, I heard, and this is a brand new bit that I have in my stand-up, about them canceling Pepe Le Pew. And so I heard that when I was at work. And I was like, what can I do with that? I don't know yet. I'm at work. I haven't given enough thought. So I said to my phone, they're trying to cancel Pepe Le Pew. He promotes rape culture. What can we do with that? Pause, whatever. Come home. It's 3 a.m. I'm ready. I'm in my element. And I just write it out. And then it takes a long time to create stand-up material, just because in the very beginning, because I don't like to just come out and be like, fart, shit, pussy. I don't want to just, that's
like shock value stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about something. But then also, let's not force people to be in this echo chamber of news that they're already constantly surrounded by. So I try to work on, I just do different styles of, let's type something out, or let's do bullet points, or let's talk to yourself, and then whatever sounds the funniest to you, whatever makes you laugh, write that down. So stand-up is convoluted. There's a lot. I can't give a final answer for that. For my skits, it's the same thing. It would be, hey, do a skit about this, or do a skit about that. And listening to music would often help me create skits. Because I would just hear someone say, I don't know, in some song, and be like, and why my girl cry every time I leave. So then I'm just like, okay, well, let me be a woman and let me experience what this breakup would be. And so then it just turns into something like that. But yeah, it's all really just, I think that as people, we think so much during the day, just on average. And I think that we convince ourselves that we're so busy and we don't have time to listen to this childish thought. So I think that for comedians, we kind of have to, I'm not going to say this word correctly, philosophize.
Sure.
There we go.
Sure.
There we go with that one.
We have to do that with those childish thoughts. And so whenever I'm constantly in motion in my head, thinking about shit that isn't funny and things that hurt my feelings and what's wrong with the world. But then I also have to say, but where's the light in that? Is there any light in that? And then that's kind of the process for all things. Breakups are never funny, but I've experienced a ton of them. So what is the reoccurring factor that has happened in all of my breakups? Am I the problem? Well, let me exaggerate all my bad qualities, or let me exaggerate her bad qualities. So it's just that anecdotal pulling from life, just anything I can, just grabbing at everything. I was at this art exhibit my freshman year, and I met this. It was on this warehouse. It was awesome, and there was this Australian photographer, and I was talking to her. And she said, "Are you an artist?" And at this time, I was just starting to really dip my toes into stand-up, because I hadn't broke through the threshold yet. And I was like, oh, I'm not really an artist. And my girlfriend at the time was like, oh, yes, he is. He's a stand-up comic. And so she goes, you are an artist. You are an artist. She's like, why do you say that you're not? And I'm like, I don't know. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then I was just like, but I get so nervous. I don't want to curate my life. And so I'm saying this, and this is her art exhibit. We're at her little section. There are people around looking at her art. And she looked at me and she went, fuck that. She said, you're an artist. She said, everything is curated. She said, everything around me. She said, pictures don't look like this. I make them like this. That's a fucked up accent, but like,
Yeah.
You say, yeah.
She was like, you have to, that is what art is. We have to take our perception and make it something. If everything was what we wanted it to be, then everyone would be what they want it to be, if that makes sense. Everyone would be a photographer if they could curate a photo the way that she could. Everyone would be a comedian if they could tell a story. But most people say, oh, you had to be there. Comedians can't say that. We have to make you feel like you're there. So it's just that component. Yeah. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, you did for sure.
Definitely.
And so with that, when you're coming up with your skits and your stand-up, do you run it by anybody to get some, feedback or get any sort of, ideas or opinions about what you're doing? And then how much does like public perception matter to you versus like what you're creating?
Okay. So first and foremost, comedians create what they think is funny.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you also find it funny. That's the foreground for any, I think, true comic. And I hadn't ran my stand-ups past anyone until late 2019. I just had this, and I usually run them by women, which a lot of people don't. I naturally get along easier with women.
Mm-hmm.
I think that comes with just how I was raised and being around women and being comfortable with them.
Yeah.
But I need to go to people that care more about saying what something is, more than they care about saying what they feel. And so I need that sort of honesty aspect when I do run my things by people, because I don't want you to be like, oh, we care so much about this, so let me just, no, I care so much about it, so break my heart if you need to, because the only thing that can come from that is more growth. So I do run it by a very, very, very select number of people. There's this woman that I've been talking to off and on. Our relationship is very strange, but she is a great person.
Mm-hmm.
And she hears everything. If I just have a thought, I'll text it to her sometimes instead of writing it even in my notes. And she'll go, oh, that's funny, write that down. If I'm in a sometimes if we're in an argument, like we're arguing with each other, I will in the argument be like, oh shit, that was funny, I gotta write that down.
Oh my gosh.
I will, but she's good. She's so good. She's so good to me because she understands like it's not pulling me away from what's important. It's never that. It's just, hey, this can make me some money. Like, please let me please. So yeah, it's a very select number that I run things by, but I appreciate that I have a diverse enough friend group to where I can feel like I'm hitting every hot seat target with my material. Because, and this is a good segue into your next question of perception. I'm not an offensive comic.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is never to hurt people's feelings, but I'm fine with being offensive as long as it's funny. But that's a fine line of not being ignorant.
Right.
So I have and I'd hate to do this whole token checklist, but I have this friend who's transitioning from female to male, Egyptian Muslim. I have a an African Muslim who is an immigrant here, his mother was. I have a bisexual woman from Indiana. I have a straight woman from Indiana. I have another woman from Turkey. So it's all these people from different aspects to where I go, how does what I just said make you feel?
Yeah.
And they'll correct me if it's ignorant. And then they'll say, oh, that one's a little. So if they say, that's a little, then I'm doing it. I'm doing it. But if they go, oh, you sound ignorant in that, then I rework it or I scratch it all together.
Yeah.
So in terms of perception, I think we tend to forget a lot of the things that got said to us when we were young, as if they're not the most important things that have ever been said to us. Because the saying, not everyone is going to like you, we all know it. We all know it. But anytime we encounter anyone in our life who doesn't like us, we overreact. This girl, Cheryl, at work, she doesn't like me. She said, what's wrong with her? I've never done nothing wrong. Not everyone's going to like you.
Right.
I was in traffic and I was driving normal and this car can flip me off. And what's he want to? Not everyone's going to like you. And so I have to understand, especially being a performer, because I think that in the heart of hearts of all performers, all we're kind of doing is I feel like when we were young, we didn't get enough attention. So this is kind of our cry to be like, look at me, mom, aren't I good enough? These thousands of people think I'm funny, mom. Do you think I'm funny now? So I know that a lot of performers have that kind of mindset or that demon that they're running from.
Mhm.
So it's harder for us to understand that not everyone's going to like you. But if you want to make it, I think, in any aspect of your life, you can't get caught up in what in the age of social media, it's hard to not get caught up in what everyone has to say,
Yeah.
because everyone will tell you how important what they have to say is. And sure, to each his own, but it doesn't have to be as important to you in that sense. Does that, like, you don't have to make something
Yeah.
realer than it is, and you also don't have to diminish it. You can let it be what it is, which is a statement. If that is
Yeah.
at all clear.
Yeah. So like you're true to yourself, but you want to cater to an audience, but also not completely offend people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was
Okay.
summed up perfect.
I have a few questions kind of swirling in my head. My first one being, do you feel like comedy is your therapy?
We're getting there.
Okay.
I used to kind of stray away from a lot of hard hitting stuff.
Yeah.
And just recently, actually, a couple months ago, I lost last fall. I lost like the closest relative that I had to me. I'm not so much a family oriented person. I'm more a friend oriented person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lost my great aunt Mamie, and that was like probably one of the toughest things I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
I wrote a song for her. I performed it at her funeral. I was doing the ugly cry in front of everybody. It was like, that was real for me.
Right.
And just recently, I wrote a joke, a decent story, and it's about me at her funeral. And it's like this big absurdist. I don't want to give away the punchline, but I'm basically just walking through my emotions at the funeral, and I get so upset and so irrational that I start to think that she's not really dead and that she's just pretending to test me to see how much I love her. Blah 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 blah. The punchline is that I smack her. Right. My mother has heard it. She hates it. She's like, "Will you just not say Mamie's name?" I'm like, "No, and so I had a conversation with someone after I performed that.
Yeah.
And so then I try to leave everyone in that suspense of disbelief that it happened, did it not happen. But this woman started really digging into what that means for me. And so she's like, "Oh, that's so funny." She's like, "What made you think of that?" And I'm like, "Well, at the funeral, like the joke is basically me walking you through the stages of grief.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how angry I am, and then I'm talking about how I don't believe that she's gone, and now I have this rage, but also I'm crying, I'm sad, and so it's a joke, and it's an absurdist joke because I'm slapping a corpse. But when you dig just a tiny bit deeper, you're like, oh, you're really talking about like the personified, exaggerated version of how we all feel when someone is gone.
Right.
And so it has, in a way, turned into a therapy for me,
Mm-hmm.
which I appreciate. There are just some skeletons in my closet still that I cannot dust off quite yet because I don't want to start crying on that stage. But yeah,
I feel that. No, I have a lot of friends who I feel like make jokes when they do feel something serious, and so that seems to be their way that they like overcome their issues. So I definitely get like what you're saying. And then my other question, so since we are on the topic of stand up, tell us about like your first gig, and then we heard that you were hired at a wedding to do stand up. That's so different.
yeah. So my first gig was freshman year of college. I remember I was in math class. When I came to Chicago, I was like, whatever you got to do comedy wise to do it. So I joined the improv team, and actually like a good improv team, which is apparently hard to come by. Like, it doesn't make me want to. Yeah. So I'm grateful for them. And there's a woman in there, Julie. She was hosting a show at the Second City. So it wasn't like an open mic, which is usually people's first experience. It was an actual showcase. People paid to come watch. It was a whole big ordeal. There was a host. There was everything. And I like that because that puts the pressure on. I feel like if I'm at an open mic, I would just take it less serious. So she was like, "Hey, Kyren, I know that you said you wanted to get into some stand-up. Do you want to?" And I remember I'm in math class. I'm not paying attention. And I was just like, "Yeah, like, let's run it. How long do I have?" She was like, 5 minutes. I was like, easy. When I first came to college, I got a new phone. All my notes got erased, and I used to hold everything in my notes. For a month, I was, because I have like, to date, I probably have like 900 notes in here. So I know that I was so upset, but then I realized, well, Kyren, there's a lot of you're going to Chicago. So there's a lot of shit that you're probably supposed to leave behind you.
Ooh.
And so maybe just look at that as intentional. Like, because there was a lot of songs in there filled with hurt and anger. Like, let that all, there will be more. And if you're funny, you will create more. That's always the thing. If you are talented, there will be more music to make. There will be more. Yeah. So my sister actually came down for some family weekend. It was a couple weeks before the show. She said something to me. I can't remember what it was, but it made me remember this stand-up routine that I was working on before I ever even hit the stage.
Okay.
So I remember that I wrote the 5-minute set out at an Embassy Suites. My sister she kept going like, put me in there, tell them that I, put me and then I didn't. And I went up there. I don't know. It's kind of like it's a surreal feeling.
Yeah.
It's a surreal feeling when it works. That's the thing. It is humiliating when it doesn't, and it's also a huge learning moment. But when it works, it is. Dave Chappelle is my idol.
Okay.
And I watched him on his Inside the Actors Studio video say that when he returned to stand up after leaving from show business, he said his spirits were so low, but when he was telling them jokes and the audience started laughing, they were lifting him up. Yeah. And he was like, and in that moment, I felt like Karate Kid. He was like, "You're the best around." And so it's genuinely that feeling. It's like, oh, I'm good at this. And I always, and for my first show, I developed this habit and I've kept it throughout. I don't look at the youngest people in the room because they're supposed to laugh at me. They're not supposed to, but they're the most likely to laugh at me. Mm-hmm. I don't look for, where my Black people at? I don't look for them. They feel for me. I tend to aim for white middle-aged couples. Okay. That's who I want to look at when I'm doing a show, because if I can make you laugh, then I'm funny, because you have no obligation to laugh at me. So if I can look at you and make you smile, I'm gonna go harder until I break you and make you laugh.
Yeah.
And so I remember doing that. It was a couple right here when I was up on stage, and I made them laugh, and bada boom, bada bing. Leading into the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wild. That was a wild time. It was like 300 people. It was the reception.
Yeah.
They did the cake thing already. This is in Ohio. This was in February. I didn't know anybody there. I had a good friend of mine. What'd you say?
No, I was saying, right. So that was something that I was thinking about earlier. Like, how do you even start to cater to a crowd that you don't know anybody? Like, you don't know what they're thinking, how they are.
You know what? You go in there, you kind of reach this point, and I like that I reached this point of where, like, I don't care. And it's not that I don't care about, because it is a job. It's not that you don't care about doing your job.
Right.
It's that you don't care about, because I also sometimes get beside myself, because I feel when I'm up on stage, like I'm tap dancing for people, and so there has to be some balancing act between that. And so when you get to the point of for the wedding, I had to remind myself that I'm doing it for me. And so the wedding was actually the first place that I performed the joke about Mamie. That's all for me. They don't know Mamie, but that's all for me, but it's funny. So I'm doing the wedding, and I could smell like the old money in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I could smell the colonizers. Like there was something about, there was something on them. They all had, like, when you're unable to frown but your lips are just straight.
Yeah.
They all had that. They had that face. And so I just dove into the belly of the beast. I'm like, well, Kyren, either you're gonna kill it here, or you're gonna learn a lot. And I broke some people, which I worked so hard on. I was telling jokes about, the first 10 minutes I did a fake wedding speech, and I was lying. I was like, me and the groom used to do drugs in high school, and we used to pull pranks on his uncle and give him Viagra, and I was talking about running from the drug cartel and shooting all types of crazy stuff just because I felt like it.
Yeah.
And then I went into my set, and all the tables that were close to me, they were engulfed in it. Kind of the further out you went, which naturally happens, the further out you go, there were people a bit more distracted. If you were over 60, you weren't feeling it. And I tried to reel them in. I couldn't. I talked about a lot of stuff that usually just hits. Couldn't get them. There was a guy right here. He had his wife, and his son at the table with him. And I'm like, I'm gonna make him laugh because he was not feeling anything. So I was like, I'm gonna make him laugh, whatever I do. Sad to say, I didn't do it. I couldn't break him. But I got his son and his wife. So I was like, Kyren, just take that. That's good enough. But the wedding was wild. It was very wild. But I would do it again. There's that weird type of one day I'll conquer the lion, and like one day I'll kill at a wedding. And so there's that type of weird momentum that you get, even when things don't exactly go your way. But that was the wedding, yeah.
How'd you even get connected with that? Because I've never known anyone to have a comedian at their wedding. How did that all come about in the first place?
So I am in a lot of Facebook groups, and I didn't know how powerful Facebook groups were. A guy just put up a post. This guy I went to high school with wants a comedian at his wedding because they can't dance, so they want some other form of entertainment. Here's the email. Send him some clips of yourself, and they'll select you or whatever. They had I think they said something where around 50 or 15 submissions. They selected me, I think 2 days after I sent in my video, and
nice.
This was a wrap. Yeah.
Oh, hold on, I gotta ask this. So speaking of the power of Facebook or just social media as a whole, we hear, Kyren, that you are not on TikTok. What is that?
Yeah. So everyone has their feedback on why I'm not on TikTok. Okay. I'm not consistently on TikTok. For one, I don't necessarily. Everything I'm about to say is going to be an excuse, and I know it. I know that everything I'm saying is an excuse.
Yeah.
My real answer to you is that I should be on there more. I should be posting the content that I want to, and without a doubt, it could help my brand and it could help my comedy overall. That's every answer. But I feel like there's nothing but children on there that are looking for more shock humor, which isn't really my thing. I also don't want to sell out. Like there are some YouTube Vine stars or whatever that turned into stand-up comedians. Yeah. And then they couldn't even sell out shows because 16-year-olds can't get into nightclubs. So it's that type of thing of who are you going to be catering to? Now that's an excuse because the right group will find you. I get it, I know. But it's just, I don't know. I got no real answer for you. I know I got to get on it.
Yeah, we need to see you on there. Because Instagram is booming. I'm sure your TikTok will boom too. So we definitely need to see you on there. Maybe this conversation will help sway you one way. I don't know. We'll see.
It might. Y'all are persuasive with it. Y'all coming from my neck, so I gotta respect it. Yeah.
But you talked a little bit about how sometimes you have to kind of work on a particular audience that may not feel your jokes. How does it feel when you really rehearse and you tell a joke and it doesn't hit? And how do you respond in that moment?
How you bounce back?
I hate when Jerry Seinfeld will tell you to stay in your material. And I think that he says, if you stay in your material, then no matter what, you're bound to bring them back around. I think that's bullshit. Mm-hmm. I think that people are watching you. That's exactly what it is. People are watching you. They are coming to see something that is proper and polished and a set, but they're watching a human being. They're not watching the set. And so Kyren, the human being, when he fucks up, he acknowledges it. So I'll say oh, y'all ain't like that one. And so, and then I'll flip through something in my head and I'll be like, okay, well, let's try this. Or if I'm looking at someone when I make a punchline and they don't laugh, I'm like, why didn't you I'll ask, why didn't you like that? What did you not like about that? And so then I was doing this bar up north, and this guy, as I did this joke and it didn't get a good reaction, this old man, let's give him a hot 70. He said, your setup was too long. He yelled that out at me. Your setup was too long. And so then in the beginning, I was busting his balls. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Whatever. You know much more than I do, right? But then I was like, well, Kyren, don't be pompous. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. I said, well, sir. I said, let's try this one on for size. And then I hit him with a quick joke, fairly new, but it's done decent. And I look at him, and now the whole room is realizing that this isn't just a comedian doing a set. Right. This is a person talking to a person. And so if you want to get everyone on your side, it's not so much as bow down to them, but it's find a way to connect to them. Yeah. So I looked at him and I did this fairly new joke, but it was personal. I'm not breaking eye contact with you. I'm not talking with your group. I'm talking to you. Yeah. And now the entire room is watching us. So I do this punchline, and just because I addressed the elephant in the room, just because I acknowledge that something that I said, something that I said didn't have a great reaction, that doesn't mean that I am now going to like crawl into the fetal position.
Right.
I'm going to punch harder, and then I'm going to find some way to break through, and then I can get back into my material. And so I do this thing. I go like, how was that? And everyone's laughing now because I made it personal. It's all this. But I'm looking at him. I'm like, how was that? And he looks at me and he goes like this. He goes, it was pretty good. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So I like to just get real nitty gritty if something doesn't play out. Just address it. Why not? What can I do? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we talk so much about the performance aspect and all the things that go into that, but you also produce your own shows as well, your own stand-up shows. Can you talk to us more about that? What made you want to do that and how that whole process went about?
Yeah. So basically, I guess the mantra behind that is if I don't have a way, I'll make one. If I can't get into the places that I'm trying to get to, I'll create one. If there are people that I think are funny and I just want to spend a night with my friends and do what I love, I'm gonna make it possible. The first show that I produced was Grain of Salt. And of course, I headline all the shows that I produced just because why would I not do that?
Yeah.
But it's really just a great time. I am poor, I am in college. And so most venues want you to pay rent for a place or do a buyout for a place. I can't do that. But the thing is that I know that if I create it within enough time, I know that I'll get an audience. Like I know that I will. And so I'll try to finagle them getting paid through ticket sales and then setting a price through that. And then if I don't match that, or if I don't make you that money, then I will pay you out of pocket whatever it is that you need for us to both be happy in the agreement. The first one that I produced was at this comedy club. It's a tiny club. It can fit about 190 around there. And the guy, I actually knew him because our improv team helped him with the 24-hour improv marathon. Okay. We were just one of the teams on the lineup. And I liked him. I liked the place. It just seemed like, because it didn't seem high class. It seemed like a hole in the wall and like, just get up here and say what you want to say. And I appreciated that. So I was like, hey, have you ever like, had a stand-up show out of here? And he was like, no. I was like, well, I'll talk to you next year. Next year rolled around. We set one up. The numbers were actually fantastic. We ended up being 25 people over capacity. It was like a night to remember. I now, since quarantine happened, I now did a lot of shows in parks, which is easier to produce because there's less people to pay. But in Chicago, there are more people to pay and you don't have to pay them. So I've kind of had to learn my way around that. But there's something about, it definitely feels more like a job when you're in the process of creating a show, but it's that payoff at the end that makes it 100 times worth it. And to feel in control of your own destiny is it's a beautiful thing. Did I miss anything on that one?
You didn't, but I do have a follow-up question to that. So I know you've produced a few shows. What's something that you would do differently from now that you know what you know when you produce your first show? Is there anything that you weren't expecting when you produced that one, or what have you just learned as you've continued to get better and have more experiences?
Honestly, I think that God had me on the first one. Like, genuinely, he did. I think that I would only change something that I did on this most recent one that I did. I spent too much money. I ended up technically breaking even, but I was actually $200 in debt. And it was a whole big ordeal. Messing around with Chicago parks was not a fun time. But the first one went really, really well. It went exactly how I wanted it. And I think that that's because I had such a good relationship with the club owner. Mm-hmm. But like, and maybe I'm just looking at it with this like type of confirmation hindsight bias, but like it went perfect. I think the only things that I would change is I do more time, which, so I guess that's the only thing that I would have changed for the first one. Do more time. Like, these people paid for whatever. Talk till they turn the lights off on you. Talk. But I did start doing that later on. So yeah, that's it.
And so we also heard, or we learned that you were doing like Zoom comedy. So what has that like been like?
I don't like it, man. I I'm
No.
tired of it. The thing is I had this comedy class with this like actually national touring comedian who taught the class,
Nice.
and I tried really hard to get on his good side, and I think that I did. He called me talented not too long ago. I appreciate that. And we had a live showcase, him and the students, and he hosted it. And he said, I was the only person that he said feedback on after their set was over, which touched my heart already. But what he said was, having Kyren in my class, something along these lines. Yeah, like with knowing Kyren, it makes me angry that this show isn't in person. And so him saying that, I was just like, wow. But it's that for me, because it's hard for, like, how am I going to look at it? Like the thing that I told you when I say, sir, what can I fix? You know what I mean? With the long setup guy, how can I make it personal with him? You know what I mean? I can't do that. And I'm not physical like Robin Williams physical, but I'm physical in the sense of kind of like Eddie Murphy, Kevin Hart, dialed down from Kevin Hart a little bit though, where it's just, it's kind of like a one-man show. There are punchlines that I have to deliver where I bend down and I get close to you. And if I notice that this table to my left is really, really feeling me, then I'm going to play into you because your energy is going to help the whole room. And it's just, you can't do that on Zoom. It's like a big disconnect, and it's painful. But it also opens up a lot of doors I did a show in the UK. I did 2 shows in Canada. I did 1 up in Maine. So things like that that's the plus side of where you can go with Zoom comedy.
So a few benefits, but you still thrive off of like the body language and the human
100%.
interaction.
100%. There's nothing like that. I close my laptop and it feels like I just watched a movie. But if I get on stage, it feels like I was in a movie.
Yeah.
Disconnect. Yeah.
And just like all of us, that's another thing the pandemic has just kind of made us do, adjust and pivot and try new things. But one thing that I want to kind of touch on and get your thoughts on is like, how has it been as a student during the pandemic? I know for myself, I was like, I would not want to be a student during this time. I'm glad I'm out. But how has that transition or kind of those challenges and obstacles been throughout the last year now? And what have you learned about yourself throughout that process?
Okay. The pandemic as a whole, genuinely kind of a beautiful thing. It forced you, and now I'm not being ignorant to deaths and all that, but aside from that, it kind of forced you to learn who you are and learn what you've excused from yourself for so long. So the pandemic within itself, kind of beautiful. A lot of people around me have had this rebirth, and I appreciate that from it. Being a student in a pandemic, completely different attitude. I finished my major. Well, I have 1 class left for my major, and I'm saving it for my senior year. But the thing is that I care so much about communication. Like I love communication. And that's what I came to college for. So I finished it. So now I'm like in these classes that mean nothing to me. But when I have in-person classes, and this is going to sound so, I don't know the word, but it's going to sound so something. When I go to classes, there's mainly like 3 things, maybe 2 things that I look forward to. I need my professors to like me. I need that. I need you to understand that I am not at all stupid. I'm very intelligent. I need you to like me. I need that. And then also, I can only care about this class when we have conversation. And then from that conversation, at least once every class, got to make the class laugh. And so with those things being kind of stripped away from me, I have less than no motivation. Like, here's a fun fact. We're on trimesters. Our trimester started last Monday. I have not gone to the entire first week, not because I decided to skip classes. I hadn't enrolled myself in classes. So the only reason and so I'm in 2 now, haven't gone to them yet. But the only reason that I'm going to go to them is because I just came back from the gym, and I got a buddy who works in there, and he's like, hey, Kai, it says you're a part-time student. I'm like, well, that's weird. And he was like, why would you say that? I'm like, he's like, are you enrolled in classes? And I was like, oh, is that what? I said, okay, look, yeah, I'll do that tonight. And he's like, oh, well, you have to, because the deadline is tonight for free enrollment, like to not have it tack on any extra charge.
Yeah.
So that's how it's going. I hope that is a very clear representation of how it's going. Yeah.
I feel like I would be pretty similar in the fact that I wouldn't care as much. Like the motivation would go down. It's just like a lot of busy work, it feels like. And it's like, let me just do this, but you really don't want to. So I definitely understand that in-person classes are definitely a lot better for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing through, and it's also helpful that you at least got to experience your freshman year, right? Like in a normal setting. So
that
definitely changes things. And so we focused the majority of our conversation on comedy, but we know that you are multifaceted. So Chegg, that is so huge. Talk to us about the Chegg commercial, please.
I will. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I don't really, I'm a person that feels like they never do enough. And everyone around me that like really loves me and kind of follows me on this journey, they keep telling me to stop saying that.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but I don't, like, there is have y'all seen Hamilton?
Yeah.
I have.
It's fire.
You gotta, it's pretty good.
Okay.
And I teared up the first time watching it because I teared up with Cedric, the first like 3 minutes I teared up. He came out and he said, Alexander Hamilton, my name is Alexander Hamilton, and there's a million things I haven't done, but just you wait. That right there, I started tearing up. And so like right away, the whole I'll never be satisfied. There's so much that I need to do. Take a break. I can't take a break. I have to do things. I can't stop until I get this plan. So the entire time that I'm watching this, I felt that.
Yeah.
So with everything that I do, maybe it's bad. It keeps me going, but like I didn't recognize that Chegg was a big deal until people started sending me the videos of Chegg on YouTube.
Yeah. Because
I hadn't seen it until people were sending it to me. The first person to send me the Chegg act was this girl that I knew who lives in Puerto Rico.
That's crazy.
So when she sent it to me, I was like, oh, like, okay, it has some reach. And then rolling out, just getting tagged and tagged and tagged. And I was like, maybe this is something, you know what I mean? And so I like the Chegg thing was a wild experience. I didn't know that it was anything until people told me that it was. But just, I've had in Ohio, I've had an agent since I was about 16 years old. So he sent me on stuff. You get told no a lot more than you get told yes, which I appreciate. It's kind of a realist way to look at things. But I got it. And I know that I don't know. If you were to say like, oh, Kyren, we booked you for this carpet commercial, I would still go in there and talk to everybody. Like, you got to laugh. Let me learn about you. How's your dad feel about you being in the creative field? What's this? What's that? Like, I need all that from you because I want there to be a rapport. I want you to remember me. It doesn't matter what we're doing because I don't know where you're going and you don't know where I'm going. But if I get a good feel for you as a person, then that just opens up floodgates for us working together.
Exactly.
So I go in there and we're all separated because of COVID. And that's not good for you, boy. Like, I'm around new people. I'm interested. So I remember I walk up to this table and I'm like, y'all care if I sit here? I said, because I'm getting lonely in the corner. So they laugh, sit down, we start talking. The the director calls me in for my first shot. As I'm in there, I'm writing, I'm talking, and I'm just cracking small stuff to him. I'm letting him throw, people like to think that they're funny. So I let them throw me, the whatever. And then I crack some back and then throw some and crack. And so me and him built a rapport like fairly quick.
Mm-hmm.
By lunch, me and the group had already established that we liked each other.
Yeah.
There was this girl doing the cup song. I never learned how to do that. So it like, that's the other thing. I think that like for comedians, you have to kind of find the kid-like enjoyment. Stop like suppressing that. And so I got really excited because I never learned how to do that. So then I get up and I start rapping the song. So I'm like, when I'm gone, and so then the director is just walking through and he sees this kind of community built around the actors and he's never seen that before. And so then he accredited it all to me. I don't know who deserves the credit, but he accredited it to me. And so when he did that, I now felt like I had this badge, and I was like, okay, Kyren, lead the people. Like, we're gonna laugh, we're gonna whatever. And he kept saying that. I was scheduled for 2 days. Most people were scheduled for one.
Okay.
I then got scheduled for a third day at the end of the second day, and I was the only person scheduled. He wanted me there at 5 a.m. Killer, because that's usually when I go to bed.
Ooh, yeah.
But I'm there at 5 a.m. and now I'm talking about his family. I'm talking about his YouTube journey. I'm talking about all these things with him because I understand that what you did for me is something that no one else has had the opportunity to do. Yeah. Like, I am the only one from the group. We're driving around town, getting these different shots, and we end up stopping by one of their houses. When we're in the house, there's me and then this other model that they picked up for a half day to do some stuff with me. The wife and the mother of one of the directors comes out, and they go, "Oh, you must be Lauren." And then Lauren's like, "Hey, yeah, whatever." And so then I'm sitting in the passenger seat, quiet, minding my business. I don't thinking about something. And they go, "And are you the funny one?" And I turn around and I go, "Huh?" And they go, "Are you the funny one?" And I'm like, I don't know who turned me that. Oh, my husband was telling me how you were just with all these people and how like you were so polite and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's just like, Maya Angelou had this thing where if people mention your name and they say, "Oh, hell," you're doing something wrong. But if they mention your name and they say, "She's so sweet," or "He's so kind," then you're doing something correct. Yeah. And so it's just that's not a prolific quote, but it's a beautiful quote. Yeah. And to see that the directors were going home and talking about me, I don't know, that kind of makes me like tear up a little bit. To see that people, when they clock out, I'm in their mind, or I left some sort of like, I resonate, man. So regardless of whatever happened with Chegg, the fact that that happened is something that I'll probably never forget, because that was just, they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to, I don't know. And he didn't have to ask me back for that third day. And I don't know, that makes me feel good in my heart of hearts.
Yeah, something you touched on was like not suppressing that childlike energy within you. And I think that's something is like we all get older, that's something we start to do. So the thing that you mentioned about just being a nice person, just going over to talk to people, networking, just being genuinely interested in other people's lives is something that really goes a long way, and something that we don't do enough of anymore. Everyone's so focused on them. They're busy, they're working, they're just going on and on. Let's go in here, let's get this shoot, let's give me my money and I'm out. But just the fact that you took the extra steps to get to know everyone, I think is something that we all need to do a little bit more of, because it, like you said, it goes a long way. But back to how big the Chegg commercial was, it's huge, because I saw it on my own Facebook. Like, I'm just scrolling my Facebook, whatever. I'm like, I think this is Kyren. I think this is Jasmine's brother. I was like, Jasmine, this is your brother on my Facebook. So like the reach that it had was like humongous. So don't downplay how big the Chegg commercial was. But what other types of roles have you had outside of just stand up? Have you been in any other commercials or any other sort of acting roles at all?
Modeling.
So I've done a couple short films, but like minor roles in that. Like one of my best friends up here, she's a hardcore actor and she's like always pushing me. So we have that type of healthy competition going on. So she's actually helped me with almost every one of those roles. I had this other one but it's again, it's just things that I just go like, Kyren, you're supposed to do this. Like, why are you not doing it? Work harder. So I've done some short films. Another one that was kind of big was I did a Finish Line photo shoot. The shoe company. Yeah. I was part of their Jordan collection. And again, I didn't even see it when it came out. I had people send it to me. And I was just like, "Oh, is this cool?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, bro, this is cool." Like, I was just like, "Okay, like, all right, then yeah, I'm happy about it." I used to do a lot of these runway shows, and that felt kind of surreal. Just because, but then I really felt like I was tap dancing at those. But like, it was just like it was good because I don't really like to be, I guess I don't like soul perception. I like to express talent. And so when I was doing the runway thing, I'm more or less just a body projecting a canvas, I guess, or I am the canvas, or whatever weird way that goes. But yeah, so the UC DAP show, if they listen to this, call me back, because that was that was like, because I really appreciated that whole, I got really cool with the director of that. They would have you do these auditions, and she just wants to see you walk up and down just to get a feel for you, and then have the designers look at you and like see if you can fit their mold. And I remember that I'm doing it, and she just looked so like stern and tough, and so I was like, Breaker, like that's just the weird thing in my mind, like it's just Breaker. So everyone's doing this walk, and they're all serious, and they're all just like all angelic and all this. And so I remember that I'm walking, and you're supposed to keep your head straight. You're supposed to, and I know all these things because I was taught this in the agency. But what am I going to do? Everyone is doing that. So I'm looking at the people in the chairs, and I'm like strutting. And so I get to the end, and she's looking at me, and she still looks too stern. So I get to her, and I go like this. And so I'm getting ready to do my turnaround, and I go like this, like that to her, right? And then she laughs, and I was like, there we go. And it doesn't matter whether I got accepted or not. I mean, thank God that I did. And she called me back twice. I was the only man that was there 2 years in a row. So thank you so much to her. But it was just, we had something. We just had something. So it's just always that with anything that I do. Yeah.
I love it. And so, Kyren, I have enjoyed this conversation so much. Like, I feel like you're such an interesting person and so smart, and you're still so young. Like, you have so much more room to grow and just be better and reach more people. And so I do wish this conversation could go on forever. But before we do wrap, we always like to do a little segment just to kind of get to know you a little bit better, but also kind of keep it light. So to start off the segment, we're going to do a Kings of Comedy 2021. All right. You're the headliner. And so we need you to tell us who are 4 comedians that you would put into this show. They can be dead or alive. He's like, no.
This is so unfair. This is the Mount Rushmore of comedy.
Yes.
I appreciate you making me the headliner. No matter what, I have to honor Dave Chappelle.
Yes.
That is the man who is teaching me how to do it correctly. Wanda Sykes is someone who is so underrated. She's a beast on the mic. Oh my God. All right, I have to do Richard Pryor, because why would I not do Richard Pryor? Who's something, I'm trying to think of not a lower level, but like someone that is more, you got me right now. Or do I want to honor somebody else? No, let's do wow. You really got me right now. Wow. Because I feel like no matter what I say, I'm going to hate that I didn't say this other name.
Right.
Let's do all right, we'll go with Mark Norman. I don't know if y'all know who that is.
I'm not familiar.
I'm not either.
Okay, well, just because y'all said that, then I'll do one more. This isn't cheating. This is not cheating. I'll close it out with Bill Burr.
Okay. Cool. So I have some research to do because I'm not familiar with the last 2. Mm-hmm. I kept thinking you were going to say Bernie Mac, but I like your lineup a lot. I tried to, yep. I messed up. Whatever. It's
you. It's your show, so it's perfect.
Yes.
If you were added to any 90s sitcom show, who would it be? Which show would it be and why?
Maybe, I guess the one that I loved the most was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I love that one the most. That was just one that I watched a lot growing up. I like the character of, I think he was multi-layered, but I also like being cool, and he represented what cool was. No other reason other than that.
Yeah, I could definitely see you and Will get into some trouble.
I can see him being like a young, like Fresh Prince, like a reboot.
Yeah. Are we throwing out ideas here?
Listen,
let's manifest it. Come on.
You mentioned Dave Chappelle, but who are some of your other influences, whether in the entertainment space or just in your life overall?
Someone who I really weirdly resonate with is James Baldwin.
Okay.
I can't get enough of that man. I feel like there was so much that and then talking about sexuality and religion, just all these things that you can't speak about, that he was speaking about.
Yeah. Back then too.
back then, in a way, I feel is what comedy is supposed to be about. He just used it in a serious lens, but I feel like that's what it should be. These are things that plague my mind, and they won't escape me until I let them out. So yeah, James Baldwin. Who do I really look up to? James Baldwin, Dave Chappelle. Of course, like Maya Angelou. I really look up to like a lot of like Black activists, like Angela Davis. I just look up to, I don't know, there's just something about, because I feel like these like philosophical, thought-provoking people, I feel like I'm kind of in the same vein. I'm not on the same level as them, but I feel like I'm in the same vein as them. And I feel like just over time, that's what real, true comedians have turned into. And I feel like if you're a Black comedian, then you've had to have learned from these people that came before you and did the same thing, but in a different outlet. So I tend to just really look up to people like that. I look up to anyone that's polite to me. And if they're older to me, then I look up to them, because that's a hard thing to be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to give any cliche answers because I don't know if I mean them wholeheartedly, but I meant those answers that I said.
Yeah. Okay, so Kyren, if you could create a law that everyone had to follow, what would it be?
Really? Y'all just gonna hit me with that. What's a law that everyone has to follow? What's a law that everyone has to follow?
Have you thought about that too?
I don't know my own answer.
I have, because I want it to be something that I believe would be a law that everyone has to follow.
Mine would be like about recycling or something.
I think I want mine to have to do. Okay, all right. This is gonna be convoluted, but when they write it as a law, it'll make sense. So okay. It has to be. So there are going to be designated days for each of these to be done. And then once each of these days is completed, then the cycle starts over from the beginning. Okay. So let's say on Monday, a white person has to do something kind to a Black person. And so then there will be a list of things that can count for that. A hug, buy him a shirt, do like any of that. And then on Tuesday or on Wednesday, a Black person has to do something kind for a white person. Okay. And I'm going to involve the Asian community. I'm going to involve like the Middle Eastern community. I'm like so it's all going to be written in America that you have to do something, usually kind of specifically to your opposite or to like your opposed. Oh, and I'm bringing politics in there too. Liberals and conservatives have to do that. Have to. I think that I might kind of establish something like a conversation, and at the end of the conversation, there has to be a hug in there too, something like that. But it's going to be that, because I hate this polarization and how the system is kind of meant to keep us divided while having both sides preach the way to be unified correctly, if that makes sense. Like we are polarizing ourselves by thinking that we know how to unify ourselves. So if you just force people to unify themselves, then maybe it might work. I don't know.
Law of unity.
Yeah.
There we go. Tell us a couple things you want to do more of this year. I know you mentioned that the pandemic was just like an overall reset for everyone. What are some couple things you want to dive into in 2021 that you may not have got to do in your past?
I mainly just have comedy goals. I want to do a lot more in-person shows because I feel like I took them for granted. I actually want to hit a lot more open mics and build relationships with club owners. Okay. Me and my mother are working on rebuilding our relationship, which is a thing. So I want to continue to be persistent and honor the thing that we are trying to create, regardless of if I feel that I'm putting more work in than she is. I just want to continue, just try that. My father is trying to rebuild a relationship with me. Okay. So I'm going to honor that as well. I have some family members that I care much about getting older. Oh, that made me sound like such a dickhead. I have some.
Not everyone, just some.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, hey, it's the truth. We're being honest. So I'm going to reach out to them, send them my love. got to eat more vegetables. I feel like everyone can eat more vegetables. And I want to learn more about things that I care about.
Yeah. Keep on growing.
Yeah.
Kyren, I feel like you have a lot of blessings coming your way, even more.
I appreciate you.
I feel like lots of good energy is just coming. Tell us where we can find more about you and your comedy. Tell the listeners.
Okay. Follow me on Instagram. It is at KI_Almighty, ALMIGHTY. That's my Instagram. That's also my YouTube. My Facebook, if you want to follow my Facebook, it is KIERONHARRELL. I usually post anything that I have going on. Yeah, I don't know. You want my number? I'll give you my number. I don't know. We can work something out. I have a website coming up soon, but these are all things in the works. But Instagram is kind of the hub of where you'll find everything at.
Nice. Okay.
And so what's next for you? You've mentioned all the things you've done so far, some of the things that you want to get into, but where do you see yourself growing the next few years? What are some things you just want to accomplish overall? And how do you see your brand overall growing as you grow?
I definitely see touring coming up in the next few. I've been speaking it hard. They say that it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. I am professionally 3 years in, so I'm trying to make it in 7, which means that I have 4 more years to really, really just hone in on this craft. I see myself, there's this project that I won't get too specific about, but I'm involved in, and I'm just going to say that I'm praying that it gets picked up is all I'm going to say.
Okay.
That's it. So I've been praying on that, and I've been counting my lucky stars. I pray that the people that I have around me right now continue to stay around me. Yeah. I have finally gotten a good group. And it's not that I can be self-destructive, but it's that the only way to judge future behavior is off past behavior. And I feel like sometimes I can get too caught up in that. And so I want to understand that these are new people entirely and do everything that I can to hold on to them because they've done so much for me. So I see me taking them with me and also them taking me with them. And yeah, just working my absolute ass off. Keep reading books, keep learning, but I see touring, I see working hard, I see building connections and maybe treading off the path a little bit and maybe finding my own way, building my own way, something like that. Yeah.
All right.
We love that. And we're just going to end on one last question. What advice would you give to someone who's eager to break into the entertainment industry? And how would your experiences kind of influence theirs?
Okay. The advice, that's a great question. The advice, I love when people say that's a great question whenever they're stuck on a question. But that is a great question. The advice that I would give, and everyone says this, but no one really does it, is be true to yourself. Because we always think that we are, but then we're not. Be true to yourself. Understand that being shocking, that's not talent. Like it's not talent to say things that's not cool. I would say that you have to hit mics sooner. That's something that I could definitely learn from my own experience. You have to hit mics sooner. And also it doesn't play out how you think it does. Like it never will. And if it does for you, the kind of beautiful thing and the real thing about it is that there's constant ebbs and flows. And more times than not, if you see the valleys as learning experiences and not as valleys, then you will forever feel like you're on peaks, if that makes sense. So just continue to see yourself as growing instead of seeing yourself as failing.
Yeah.
And then also understand you may just not be funny. It may just not work out.
Might not be in the cards for you.
Yeah.
Fine.
Well, we definitely appreciate your time, Kyren. Appreciate you for joining us. That's another episode of the Invited Podcast in the books. I really appreciate you.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. I love y'all. Y'all are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Cool.
Have a good night.
Y'all do the same. Thank y'all.
I appreciate it.
You.